Hey guys, it's Paul, combat veteran, MMA fighter, YouTuber, and we are back doing part 2 of Luton's Making a Space Marine. This is the recruitment phase, so it is going to get pretty weird. But let's go.
As previously described, each chapter is responsible for its own replenishment. It chooses where and how to locate potential Space Marine candidates. Many will recruit solely from their own homeworld, but others will reach out to hive worlds of the Imperium to locate powerful and resilient fighters who have shown promise and an unnatural ability in combat, even potentially recruiting from gang fighters in hive cities. Feral planets can also be good for selection, as the humans here are physically tough and have to deal with daily hardships more frequently than some other Imperial planets. Surprisingly, less
So here is my thoughts on recruiting young children. Again, it says 12 to 16 usually, but selecting for kids who have grown up in really traumatic environments, which it sounds like that's what they're talking about when they talk about recruiting from underworld gangs, recruiting from feral worlds. It just sounds like they're really trying to select for kids who've seen some terrible stuff. Now, what we know nowadays is that kids who've experienced what we call now like a traumatic event, it really changes their psyche often, not always, but very often, changes their psyche in some really negative ways. They generally have lower control of their emotions. They're more prone to emotional swings. Their fight or flight response gets really messed up. So they'll either perceive routine occurrences as being really threatening and scary, or things that are actually scary, they will have no response to at all. It also, of course, results in a whole bunch of disturbances to the biology. Those kids are more likely to have strokes, heart attacks, cancers, all sorts of stuff. So, again, to seek out children that are like that is not always the best, is not going to be the best method. We know from the demographic profiles of modern Special Forces soldiers, modern Navy SEAL types, all those sort of folks, that they generally skew actually upper class. They are often highly trained, high-performing athletes in sports, but they frequently had at least one loving parent and relative stability at home. And that's because we think, based on the current research that we have, that when you grow up in a persistently impoverished or dangerous or difficult environment, again, like being the underworld, a member of the underclass in a major city, or being a member of a low technology, like primitive group, that it changes the way human beings view time rewards, right? So growing up in those environments makes immediate rewards feel more important than delayed gratification. And that transpires across all things, right? The classic, of course, being something like food, right? Where you gorge yourself on food when it's available, because on an instinctual level, you think there may not be food in the future. But it shows up in all kinds of other ways, right? Going to hang out with your friends or going out drinking is more important than studying, because that friendship, that temporal experience seems very close, and it may go away. You may not get that pleasure, whereas school and studying feels like a hypothetical that's a long way off, right? You're investing for years for a payoff down the line. So again, if I was to select a person to live for hundreds or thousands of years, the person who can't engage or is less likely to be able to engage in delayed gratification is not who I would select.
Recruits actually appear from the militaristic worlds like fortress planets, maybe because although knowing lives of military discipline, they haven't endured the true horror and hardships that come from the rougher ends of Imperial life.
Yeah, I don't believe that for a second. I think your best candidates would absolutely come from worlds that have a highly developed military system and a really effective way of identifying, training, and selecting strong performers in a military, right? Because even though the Astartes differ in a lot of ways, what are the skills that are going to make a good Astartes? They're going to be calm under pressure, ice cold. They are going to be able to coordinate with their battle brothers and other units, right? Work as a team really effectively. Be able to trust their chapter brothers with their lives. They are going to be able, obviously, to learn fast and learn often incredibly complex things. And they're going to be able to, like we talked about, see the big picture, invest in the long term, right? Longer term than most people live, right? So an Astartes might sit there and say, hey, I'm going to be spending 100 years fighting Tyranids in this planet, but it'll be worth it because we know we're going to kick them out of the sector if we just keep grinding on it. And that's the sort of incredible long-term thinking that you absolutely won't get from traumatized kids, but that you'd probably get from a system that raises kids to be tough, but also be strong and be resilient and be capable and be intelligent. Because that's ultimately what's going to make the best soldier that we found in modernity is not only are they physically tough and are they mentally resilient, and you actually do tend to get that from kids with less traumatic experiences, less traumatic childhoods, but you want to make sure that you have team players who can work together, who achieve that certain level of social trust, at least among their in-group. And you're going to find that in these worlds like Cadia and Krieg, where there's already a intense martial culture.
Any candidate for a Space Marine will be usually young, between the ages of 10 and 15 years old. Obviously they need to be strong, healthy, and fiercely loyal to the Imperium. Often on worlds where recruitment occurs, young male humans who show exceptional skill or strength are pushed hard to give them the best chance of potential recruitment. Candidates can occasionally be as old as 20, but the full effect of their biological conversions may not be as effective or complete. Standard trials for Space Marine recruitment often involve combat, endurance, perhaps hunting of some extremely dangerous indigenous animal, and for the few who survive the tasks set by the Astartes who are there to supervise, the rewards are beyond estimation.
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of human history where kids about that age, men really, go through a ritual trial and then emerge from the other side. And I'm a big believer in that. I think undergoing trials where failure is a real possibility and developing the confidence that comes from passing it is almost invaluable to adults later in life, right? They just develop a certain level of poise and confidence and self-belief, especially if it's something that's the result of hard training. And, in the United States, I think we do a mediocre job of this. In some ways, I think sports and encouraging children to do sports, and sports where winning and losing is taken fairly seriously, I think is pretty important. You see similar things. I mean, the truth is, similar things in religious rituals. Older, more, I'm going to say primitive, like hunter-gatherer societies would often do like a formal ritual. Again, there's even informal ones of families, for example, a father taking their son on their first hunt. Yeah, so there's a lot out there, but I think there is something really important to your development as an adult to overcome as a child a trial, right? That's a fundamental growth process that I think everyone should go through, frankly. And even our modern military trainings usually have your basic training culminates with a final exercise, a final ultimate test. The Marine Corps has their crucible. I think the Army has its longest ruck march of all of them. I think it's something like 25 miles. But those are things where people feel usually a tremendous sense of accomplishment afterward. And it really does build a better, more confident soldier.
It's difficult to describe just how revered Space Marines are to ordinary citizens of the Imperium. While they wouldn't be directly worshipped, they are certainly individuals with godlike reverence and awe. Many humans in the Imperium will go their entire lives without ever even seeing an Astartes, and they may only arrive on an Imperial planet once in a generation. On some worlds they are even somewhat mythical. So for a family on an Imperial world to have their son chosen for Space Marine recruitment and candidacy would be an honour beyond imagination. But from some perspectives, bittersweet, in as all likelihood they may never see them again once they have been accepted, and in very high possibility will probably die in later processes. But it's nonetheless the highest honour to serve the Emperor and the Imperium in this way, and would no doubt lead to adulation, even possible special treatment for families after the fact. Ordinary citizens understand that to be accepted for the conversion to the Astartes, the Emperor's chosen warriors, is nothing short of becoming a demigod. Then again, you could just as easily have been recruited from a hive world full of daily extreme violence, and your gang was just forcibly made to participate in the trials, and you were simply the only one left alive at the end. So
yeah, that's an unbelievably bad method to create an Astartes, or to select a candidate to eventually become an Astartes, is to literally just grab a bunch of kids, force them to murder their friends, and then take that deeply traumatized kid and be like, you are our winner. You've almost certainly fucked their brain up, messed their brain up pretty fundamentally, and and there may have actually been better candidates that were defeated by this kid, who would have had the mental and spiritual resilience, right? Because some subset of people, we know, some subset of kids are capable of enduring some pretty horrendous horrors and bouncing back. But it's this tiny, tiny minority, and you don't find them by making them kill each other. Again, and it's so tough because even if you did somehow screen out a kid who hasn't been damaged then and there, sometimes these things show up way later on in adulthood. And, as far as the kids, the families being honored, yeah, I think that's pretty typical. It's hard to describe just the level of religious reverence that I guess people have for the Astartes, and how, if someone was like, hey, we're going to make your kid into a god, yeah, I don't know how I'd react. I don't have any kids, so I don't really know. I imagine I'd be pretty upset, but pretty proud of them. But again, the cult of the Imperium is pretty strong, so I'm sure they would sign off. Those parents would sign off on anything.
That's your flip side of the coin. Pray you never seek acceptance to the Grey Knights. I'll cover that later. Despite all the physical and mental requirements for candidacy,
okay, I appreciate that this isn't a Space Marine.
Another element is spiritual purity. In the 41st millennium, Imperial society is heavily religious, worshipping the God Emperor, and most importantly, decrying the ruinous powers of chaos. Chaplains and the ecclesiarchy will continually monitor society around Astartes' recruitment sources to ensure that there are no signs of taint by the dark forces of chaos.
Okay, gotta weigh in. So, mass murder? Just making kids, forcing kids to murder each other, that's got to be at least a little heretical, a little bit of the taint of chaos. You're definitely giving some blood for Khorne the Blood God. But maybe that's the reason why there aren't as many kids recruited from worlds like Cadia, which has never fallen, or Krieg, is because there's already a considerable influence of chaos and sort of darkness on those worlds. I don't know. Lore experts, weigh in. I really could use your help here figuring this one out. Okay, so actually we are at a logical stopping point. This is probably what happens to some of the kids selected. So, yeah, let's pause it here. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I definitely learned something. Not sure I needed to know that all Space Marines are kids that they force to murder other kids. But, happy to do so. I guess not all of them, right? Some of them hunt big, dangerous game. But be sure to check out my second channel. Be sure to subscribe to my Instagram. And, oh yeah, by the way, check out the merch. I got merch, right? It's for copyright purposes, this is not the Deathcore of Krieg. This is actually me drinking coffee because everybody needs coffee. And I got shirts back there. Be sure to check them out. And, yeah, till next time, I will see you guys later.